on Metro News in Focus. We go behind the Christchurch Cathedral pordings. And people out in force, raising awareness for one of our biggest killers. Kia ora, good evening and welcome to Metro News in Focus, a current affairs series brought to you by journalism students at the New Zealand Broadcasting School. First up tonight, when the 2011 earthquake damaged Lyttelton Port, cruise ships had to anchor elsewhere, and that place was Akaroa. But with a new cruise berth almost complete, there are fears the town will lose a lot of business. Filing out to finish up. Construction on Lyttelton's new cruise berth, a year off completion.
We've designed it as a cruise berth for the largest cruise ships that call around New Zealand, and making sure that really we can bring the passengers, the cruise passengers, into Lyttelton, then through to Christchurch and Canterbury.
These artist impressions show just what the $60 million berth will look like. Its ability to host up to 8,000 people each visit, unparalleled. It's the only purpose-built super cruise berth in the country. And Peter Davey says the return of passenger ships will bring a positive change to New Zealand's third largest port.
No, look, it's going to be a really good development, and it just, I don't know, cruise passengers give a buzz to a place when they come through. You know, we move a lot of cargo, but that's just trucks and things, but actually seeing people walking around will be great.
Great for the economy too. Already the cruise industry contributes $700 million annually. And with more than 70 ships booked in so far for the 2020 and 2021 season, the contribution to Christchurch is expected to be huge.
The spend will increase significantly. If you're there on the ground, and it can be just the simple things in terms of cups of coffee and walking around exploring the city, or those people who choose to purchase day trip or tour options, so they might spend between $100 and $300 per person.
As you can see, there's still a bit of work until this cruise berth is completed, but once it is, it will bring thousands of tourists right here, closer to Christchurch than Akaroa, where they've been anchoring for the last 8 years. But it hasn't been without its problems. When it comes to cruise ships, the community's divided.
Probably down the middle.
Michael Norris is the chair of Akaroa Civic Trust.
The Civic Trust is here to protect the beauty of and the character of the town, and not just have it as a dumping ground for mass tourism.
With 91 cruise ships booked for the coming summer, it's looking like it will be one of the biggest seasons yet. But the concern from Norris is whether it can cope.
Having two big ships in particular, 8,000 potential people coming ashore, if they can all make it ashore, puts a big strain on the town's resources, not just the toilets, but just the footpaths and the bus traffic that it generates. And therefore you'll get people disgruntled saying, well, we didn't enjoy our time because we were so crowded we couldn't do anything. Overcrowding never works.
But the concern from the business community is whether they can cope without the ships. Figures on the Christchurch NZ website show only 4,800 tourists arrived in Akaroa via cruise 10 years ago. Now, 190,000 people. But the town will lose at least 50 ships when the Lyttelton berth is opened.
Yeah, it's a big concern. We've had to invest in order to cope with them. Not just myself, but many of the other businesses, and we've come to sort of expect and rely on them.
Darren Rainbird runs multiple businesses in Akaroa, including a French bakery, the local eyesight and an adventure centre. A letter of support he wrote for the ships to stay received more than 300 signatures. That's over half the town. He's prepared for the summer, but not quite prepared for what lies after that.
Businesses are worried, and a lot of consolidating like myself, and looking to see where we can look to our new markets. Hopefully with the help of Christchurch NZ, trying to drive a bit more business here.
but Christchurch NZ says it's always been temporary.
So there will be a definite downturn in what's happening in Akaroa, but I think that everybody has expected that and people should be planning for it.
He believes Akaroa will benefit from Christchurch's improvements.
Success of Akaroa actually is dependent on the success of Christchurch economically. So 60 to 70% of all Akaroa visitors are from Christchurch.
But staff cuts and closures are still expected. Christchurch NZ will work with the community as it develops its tourism post-cruise ships.
I can't see how they're going to do that in a year. Yeah.
A town that helped Christchurch when it was in need, asking for a hand in return. Should festival goers be able to test their illegal A-class drugs before using them? Some politicians say yes, some say no. And Winston Peters was in town at the weekend and discussed just that. Here's Isaac Gunson.
This is a line of MDMA, and in a moment from now I'm going to put it into a cap and sell it to you. It's approximately 0.1 grams, which goes for about $35 based on the national average, and I'm just kidding. It's actually my Panadol. But short of me telling you that, how would you have known? What if you or a friend was looking to buy some MDMA and I'd put something worse than Panadol in? That's one of the arguments being made for legalising drug testing at festivals in New Zealand. Know Your Stuff NZ is an organisation which does just that by operating in a legal grey area. By not advertising their services and only letting it spread by word of mouth that they're there, Know Your Stuff avoids Section 12 of the Misuse of Drugs Act, which says it's illegal for a venue to be knowingly permitted for drug use. And by only letting the client handle and prepare the substance, the organisation avoids possession and distribution charges as well. But why are drugs like MDMA so popular at music festivals in the first place? Dr. Fiona Hutton explains.
The main reason people take drugs like ecstasy is exactly the same reason as they take legal drugs like alcohol. So they take them for fun, they take them to socialise with their friends, they take them, to enhance their experiences of a night out.
And pill testing has received a groundswell of support in Parliament, with the Prime Minister and Police Minister from Labour, Chloe Swarbrick from the Greens, and David Seymour from ACT all throwing their weight behind the idea. They are, however, up against National's Simon Bridges and, more crucially, New Zealand First's Winston Peters, Labour's coalition partner in government.
That student or that young person walks off and sells an already notified dangerous product. How then is the state not guilty of helping or assisting or abetting what it in fact is, because that person now has knowledge, a murder?
And it's not just Winston. Derek Ball of the New Zealand First caucus shared the party's views on pill testing at a conference this weekend.
What it does is it normalises the drug use of the illegal use of drugs in places like pill testing stations, in not only festivals. These are popping up at university campuses as well.
However, that view might be set to change, with New Zealand First announcing that it intends to review its policy on pill testing, largely thanks to its youth wing.
The position of our youth wing is that drug testing at festivals is a necessity for the future. In terms of the arguments being made, one is that it is quality control for drug dealers, but it's actually not an issue of drug reform. However, this isn't about that. This is about preventing preventable deaths and preventable harm to young people especially.
Wendy Ellison, Managing Director of Know Your Stuff NZ, says 15% of drugs tested last festival season were not what they were meant to be. However, that number's been as high as 80% in previous seasons, which is why they've continued on.
Obviously, its popularity globally sort of exploded in the late 1980s with the Summer of Love and the development of rave culture, as it was known then. Refer to it more contemporary times as sort of dance culture or club culture or whatever.
And because of New Zealand First's current position on drug quality testing, it doesn't look likely that any aspect of that drug culture will be legalised in time for the upcoming festival season. Isaac Gunson, METRONEWS.
With work underway to tidy up Cathedral Square and plans still being drafted for the cathedral's rebuild, a small but lucky group went behind the fences, and I went along too. Up close with Christchurch's damaged heart. It's the nearest the public have been allowed since the quakes.
When I told people I was coming, they were like, really? That's amazing. That's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity because nobody gets the chance to do it.
And a moving experience for others.
I'm not Anglican, I'm Catholic, but this is part of my life too, you know.
And how was it seeing it, getting up and close?
Oh, I thought the old girl looked quite peaceful actually, that it had settled. I thought it would look sadder, but it seemed quite peaceful.
It may look peaceful, but the cathedral administrator says there's plenty of work underway.
It's great to see these people and to explain what's going on, to reassure them that although not a lot's happening on site now, a lot of work is going on behind the scenes, and it's all going to go off with a hiss and a roar next year.
It's been more than 8 years since Oldham was last in the building, and he looks forward to the day he can go back in, expected to be another 8 years from now.
It's absolutely fantastic that the project is now underway.
Construction will begin in April to ensure this place is safe enough for people to get in and get out the last remaining treasures and survey the damage from the inside. Beyond the gates, a spruce up has begun of Cathedral Square.
Over the next 2 years, work on the $3.6 million project will be split into 4 phases. Priorities include fixing damaged paving, improving the lighting. It's hoped it will be embraced by the public while development continues in the city and serve as a test for the long-term regeneration of the square. A vision that won't be realised until the cathedral is finished.
Looking forward to work getting done and getting back?
Yes, it is the heart of Christchurch.
A broken heart, soon on the mend.
Some good news this week for cash-strapped, rugby-loving students. Saturday's semi-final between the All Blacks and England will be live and free to air. Spark and TVNZ have been joint broadcasters this time round, but with some experiencing difficulties with the streamed coverage, students we spoke to are excited about this week's coverage.
I guess it's just like, you know, the safety blanket of knowing that it's probably not going to buffer, and the fact that it's free is like really good. It means you can like get a packet of chips instead of paying $80. Get an $80 packet of chips.
Chips or not, coverage starts 7 p.m. Saturday on TVNZ1 with kick-off at 9. After seeing the effects drinking culture has down in Dunedin, our reporter Courtney finds out what Christchurch is doing to look after students when it comes to alcohol.
Student drinking culture in Christchurch has changed quite dramatically over the last 7 to 8 years, with students understanding how to drink more responsibly.
It's definitely changed. Students still like to drink, but they've moderated their habits. They've worked out what's acceptable, and most of the time they comply very well.
Each year a new lot of students come through wanting to have a flat or house party.
Look, I'm not the anti-fun police. I want students to enjoy themselves, but I want them to be as responsible as they can and realise that the community expects them to behave in a reasonable manner.
A common scene on a Thursday night with students queued up at the UC's on-campus bar.
A trend I've noticed over the last few years is students are becoming a bit more aware of their own well-being, and I guess the link between not only drinking but drugs, and also I guess, you know, how that impacts on you holistically.
They are working alongside the police and the community to make student drinking safer in Christchurch while not taking the fun away.
When we hold events in our building, or we hold events, say, on the fields that are drinking, you know, that have drinks and alcohol available, that, you know, that actually takes demand off, you know, students' own, you know, flat parties that they might be having in a cul-de-sac somewhere, you know, that might be hosting over 100 people. You know, we take that demand off the streets or out of flats and we put it in a, you know, in a controlled area.
But at the end of the day, students will still make their own decisions.
So you could put on all the, you know, the most epic of events on campus away from the streets, but I think students, in their mind, there's like this a wider culture of what a good time looks like, right? And for some it may be in a venue, it might be in a festival, controlled festival, but it might just be like a good old house party.
With more education for partygoers about what a responsible party looks like, we could see the culture around student drinking continue to improve. Courtney.
One group is working with the community to help children of prisoners excel. Brooke went along to check it all out.
With almost 10,000 people in New Zealand prisons, one organisation is working with families affected to help break that cycle. Pillars, which works with families who have a parent in prisons, provides a mentorship program for these children. One mentor chose to take part in the program to give back to his local community in a way that helps to avoid intergenerational offending.
I was very lucky to have someone in my life that stood by me and that wasn't necessarily a family member, that was just there as a good sound reason. So to me it was knowing that there's people out there that need someone like that and don't have someone, especially locally in our own area. It was just a real thing that reached out to me to help out. So.
The organisation established a mentorship program as a way to provide guidance to the children and have their own person to talk to outside of their family network.
So Pillars, we help with children that have a parent in prison, so we want to sort of break the intergenerational cycle that's happening, and it's sort of a positive influence or just a friend that they can have in their life.
The program matches mentors like Chris with children who can range up in age to 17 to act as a guiding figure beyond their own friends and family.
It's left to your own devices. I know what I would have been like if I didn't have good people around. It's a really big time, especially to me at this age, around your 15 and 16 for my mentee. It's a pivotal time that if you don't have that support, it can either go one way or the other.
While only having been a mentor for the past 3 months, Chris says he's seen a significant improvement in the confidence of his mentoree. Brooke, METRONEWS.
We're seeing more firefighters under immense pressure, and it's taking a toll on them physically and mentally. For many of the men and women, an overwhelming part of their job is now attending medical incidents, which are called purple calls. The mental impact this has on the attending firefighters is overwhelming, and for some, struggle to move past.
A large number of firefighters are committing suicide now because of the stress they live under. All those stresses, it's not just a CPR. The men are affected hugely by it. And we deal with it on station. We have a great welfare officer and we have peer support. But I don't know if it's enough. I don't think it is enough.
We'll have that story in more detail next week. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and the Breast Cancer Foundation and the community are working together to raise funds and awareness on the disease that takes over 600 lives a year. Isobel Prasad reports.
A sea of pink. This walk flooded with people of all ages, coming together in support of those fighting breast cancer.
So events like this are so good because people can do something really tangible. They can raise money, they can get together with friends, they can do something active, they can feel like they're putting their support into a really special place.
At the same time, celebrating those who have won and honouring those who have lost their battle.
We miss a friend, we miss an auntie, we miss someone today. So could we please just spend a moment in silence, in grace, in love.
Set up by the Breast Cancer Foundation, October is a time where the organisation can get out and spread its message.
Most people that you talk to will have had an experience of some kind, know somebody who has been touched by breast cancer, and so I think people are always quite open to hear our messages.
It's participants at events like this which keep this non-government funded organisation afloat, at the same time bringing together women and men from around the community to raise awareness.
It just brings all sorts together, doesn't it? It's amazing.
Aside from raising the money, awareness.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, people need to be made aware. Those mammograms are so important.
With members fueling their passion for the organisation from their own experiences with the disease.
I've been an ambassador for, I'm going to say maybe since 2000, so for a really long time, inspired by my mum, Sue, who actually passed away at 45 years old from breast cancer. She had us 3 kids at the time, and it's just, I guess, my part that I want to do to encourage families to remember that this is something that can happen to anyone.
Their main message being, early detection is your best protection.
I know that it's hard and you can get a bit whakama, and I'm not going to say that a mammogram's the most fun thing you could ever do, but it's actually better than the alternatives.
And there's hope that events like this will continue to highlight the importance of having your breasts regularly checked.
We've lost a lot of family, a lot of aunts and that to breast cancer.
Yeah,
I don't know how aware people were made of it back then. Probably there wouldn't have been anything like this, you know?
No.
So it's a disease which these people continue to fight, hand in hand. Isobel Prasad, Metro News.
Isobel Prasad sat down with survivor Tanya Gilchrist, who shared her story.
I wasn't going to go and get my mammogram because I'd had one 2 years ago. It was all clear. I didn't like it, didn't need to do it again. But anyway, I went to the doctor for another reason and she prompted me. She said, go and get it checked. So I did. And then about 3 weeks later, I got a call from CBC to say, we think you should come in so we can have another look. And in my head, it was like dust on the lens will all be good, right? But no, it turned out I had what they call DCIS, or ductal carcinoma in situ. So it's essentially a pre-cancer that sits in the milk ducts. So that was a bit of a surprise. And the treatment for that, they decided, was mastectomy. There are apps now that teach you how to check your breasts and all that sort of thing, but for, my particular brand of cancer, by the time I was feeling lumps, it would have been too late for me. This particular cancer sits in the milk ducts, not doing too much harm until it busts through into the breast tissue. Then it becomes a serious issue. And if I was feeling lumps with that particular, brand of cancer, then I wouldn't be sitting here today. So there's lots of different flavours, I think, is what I'm saying, and a bit of self-awareness and going to your screenings is probably a really good idea. Everybody knows breast cancer. Breast cancer is a thing. I think we need to be aware that there's different flavours, that being in denial about it is really dangerous. Some of the things that have really come to light to me lately is that since I had my adventure in breast cancer land, I now have 3 grandchildren. And it's really important to me to be around to be their nanny. So I'm really glad I went to my mammogram, and I'm really glad that my doctor prompted me to, So, yeah, I think awareness is really important. Kia kaha, kia manawa. It is a big deal, and if you're keeping your family in mind, they're a big part of the journey, So don't think that you're on your own.
Breast cancer isn't the only condition in the spotlight at the moment. It's Blind Awareness Week. Brooke takes a look at how technology is inhibiting and helping the blind and low vision community.
While technology has made significant advancements towards catering to your every need, has it made it more or less inclusive to communities who are blind or have low vision? According to Petronella Spicer, who went blind in her 30s, venues have become more inclusive with their use of technology that is specifically designed to help those visually impaired.
Just recently, actually last weekend, went to Miss Saigon, and lovely Showbiz did a backstage tour, so those with low vision or no vision were able to experience what was on stage and be able to touch props, touch costumes, meet the principal cast, hear them sing a line, and also get all the background information about the show, so then we could go along and just sit and listen and actually follow the show.
Shows at venues like the Isaac Theatre and the Town Hall are fitted with hearing loops to help those with hearing impairments, as well as some performances organised by Showbiz which can be accompanied with audio description. Screen readers and virtual assistants such as Siri allow the blind and low vision community to engage through technology such as smartphones and laptops.
And these days too, a lot of programs now have audio description on it, so that enables me to be able to follow programs much better.
According to Blind and Low Vision New Zealand, it is important to note whether technology is made with disabilities in mind, as current tech has the potential to exclude the blind community. Actions such as online shopping or scrolling through social media have further enforced restrictions of the blind community, without the use of alternative text on images.
Websites being a really key place these days that people do gain information from, so just being, if you're not able to see images and the images are conveying vital information, it's just once again locking people who are blind or low vision out of accessing that information.
Without the inclusion of disability capability in technology's design, it has the potential to block and exclude groups like the visually impaired.
It really comes down to whether or not technology is designed and built with accessibility in mind up front, because when technology is built in a way that is inclusive of someone who can't see or has limited sight, then, it just opens up the opportunities. When it isn't designed in that way, then it can often also create barriers.
While technology continues to advance without the consideration of disabilities in their design, it can potentially exclude entire groups of people. Brooke Hunter, METRONEWS.
And that's all for tonight. For those stories and more, head to our website metronews.co.nz or stay up to date on our Facebook page. Join us again next week, but for tonight, those were our stories in focus. I'm Leighton Heikell, and from all of us, ngā mihi nui, hei konei rā.